is an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering the Afterparty, Season 2, Episode 6, Danner's Fire. In this episode, we get to see what happened with Danner, and I've got to say, kids, I feel like this was the first episode of this show that really didn't land for me. This was unnecessary. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Max for commissioning this episode and for listening to me maybe trash one episode a little bit. Now, I'm coming out of the gate swinging saying trash. I don't really feel like that's going to be what happens. But I just really didn't like that we were already going off into another unrelated character's POV. Saying already makes it sound like we have all this time. And I guess I would rather have just not gone into Danner's POV at all. I understand that probably, you know, the way that acting works and the contracts and whatnot, there was probably some kind of requirement that Tiffany Haddish be given an episode to center her and her POV, because otherwise she's very much like a supporting character, and she's a pretty big name to agree to be on the show as only sort of tangential support. So I feel like it was already kind of trying to claw its way into me having like a good attitude about it. And then the actual like way the episode goes is so tedious because you know what the fuck is going to have happened. Like, it's just so obvious right from the get-go that she's trying to teach him not to be too close to it because she was digmatized. And really, it's not enough for an entire episode. They play it like it's just, a one joke about this guy after another, but it's just too dragged out for a joke that's only a little funny. And I think that I've mentioned already that I have some baggage around Tiffany Haddish and some of the things that she has done in the past and hasn't handled super well. So I also feel like there was the part of me that is just sort of down on her. And because a lot of this, like one of the things that she got in trouble for was just some real questionable sexual content that also involved children. Anything that's like really over sexual with her, I just feel icky about. So there was just a lot really against this episode. And so it was hard to let myself even enjoy it. And like the only thing that we get away from her is Travis making that tea out of that flour and drinking it. And that almost doesn't lead anywhere at all. Like, there's eventually a moment where Zoe is like, oh shit, that teapot. And it almost looks like she's trying to cover up evidence of her own wrongdoing. I think we're meant to sort of question whether or not that's what's happening. But otherwise, another thing that doesn't do enough to justify it being almost like half the episode. And I say half, not in terms of actual screen time, but there's really just those two things going on in this one. That's it. It's Tiffany's story and Travis drinking the poison. So it's doing a lot of heavy lifting in an episode that needs it. And it doesn't have the bones to do it. So the whole episode just sort of collapses in on itself because you are not excited about... I can't imagine I'm the only one who feels like seeing Danner's POV feels like a disappointment when you are wanting to know more about the murder, to just hit the brakes at this point and go over to jump into her thing. Last season, doing this worked because the whole thing with this other cop and the way that they set it up was like, it felt really relevant because this was a cop that was coming to be part of this investigation. And it was like justifying why we should be on the side of the cop who's doing an investigation she shouldn't be, which you really need to like make me get on board with that because otherwise I'm just not going to like it. And they managed it and it all came together. This, unless it turns out this fucking arsonist or somebody is like the murderer, this is so utterly irrelevant. And it feels like they didn't even try to take seriously pulling all of these incidents together into a cohesive story. They were just like, well, we have to give her an episode. What'll it be? I know, we'll do something real funny about how she falls for one of the suspects. Falls for him? Or just really wants to fuck. Oh, it'll be very funny if she just wants to fuck real bad over and over again. It's funny a little. Not really. Like, not really. And like I said, because we know the whole thing that she's attempting to do is illustrate to Anique the fact that being too close to something can mean that you fuck it up. There is no surprise to the fact that the therapist was the arsonist. Like, at least you could try and make there be a bit of doubt around this. I don't know. Have it be somebody else that was close to her. And even if you kind of know that's what's coming, if you make it more compelling, but it just being like, this guy was hot and I enjoyed fucking him a lot. There's no soul to that. There's nothing of, you know what I mean? Like, it's just so nothing. So, okay. Oh, Lauren's in the chat says, ooh, yeah, this one is rough. This one does feel so much like stopping the momentum of the season. Definitely. The redeeming part of this ep is that we get to see her partner from last season. Wholeheartedly agree, Lauren. Very, very, very much. That was actually something that I had meant to say is, I don't remember the character's name, and I'm sure I'll see it in like the subtitles or something once I get there. But he is so fucking funny. And it just is that the partnership between the two of them. I almost wondered at first, oh, are we going to have it be that it turns out her partner was doing something illegal and that she didn't see it? And like, I think that would have made a better story, but it wouldn't have really explained why she left the cops. Like, she wound up resigning because she had fucked up so bad and she felt like she had not done her job and failed. And what I think I could have enjoyed here is an episode where her and her partner are suspected of something that's maybe not even like that big a deal, that it's not illegal necessarily, but it's just something that's maybe the fact that it's low stakes would be really funny. Like, let's say somebody's yogurt keeps getting stolen from the fridge. We have a community lunch fridge. Somebody's fucking food keeps disappearing and she can't see that it's her partner. And eventually one day she like goes to his house and she finds all of these yogurts and it turns out like he's not even eating them. He's just taking them because he really does not like that guy and he's just fucking with him. But she never considered it because her partner notoriously hates yogurt and also she likes the guy. If it were something very, very stupid, it would almost have been more fun because at least we're getting more of her partner who I like especially. It wouldn't have made sense for her like leaving the force, but we'll figure that out. I don't know. And maybe she's covering up for him, and in covering up, it looks like she's like falsifying some other evidence. But I get the impression they want her to go back to the police force, so they need to leave that door open. I don't know. But I just think that having this story involve nobody at all that we have ever met, except the guy from last season who's at the karaoke bar. But otherwise, it's just like, it feels like such a misstep. And this is the problem. And like, I understand it. I do. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't protect artists. Like, having contracts for actors and costume designers and visual artists, like, so that they have job security and are actually like making some money and getting seen. That's totally crucial. And I really encourage it. But it's the hardship about things on TV, because then you have to come up with stories that aren't fulfilling to watch, because you needed this person for one particular plot device, one season, and now you have to give them equal screen time again, and there's nowhere to put them. So you've just got to manufacture something. And there are times where that works out and something gets manufactured, and it actually, like, the side character becomes one of the most fun people with one of the most fun stories, because it was just not intended to, be a big deal. And so the writers were allowed to have a little bit more fun. And that can certainly, but it's a lot rarer for it to work out than it is for it to feel like this, where everything just comes to a screeching halt and you're left like, what? Why are we doing this? Lauren says, also, I forget exactly what's going on at the beginning /end. Isn't Zoe protesting that her parents be interviewed? No one ever mentions that even if they're not guilty, they might be able to provide useful info. Yes, and that is like, look, the whole thing with Anik just being afraid to even ask to question Zoe's family. I have felt kind of mixed about it all season. That he has been somebody with a pretty strong moral center before. And now, just the fact that he is trying to make a good impression and wants to marry Zoe has caused him to, like, utterly lose track of that. And I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but, now, after seeing this episode, it's really clear why they decided to hammer on that so much. Because if they didn't, there'd be nothing for Danner to, need to sit him down and have a big talk about. And that was the whole point of this. So, we've got to really make it feel like it's an ongoing problem and that he has to be convinced. But I think, that's also part of it for me, is that Anik just doesn't feel like a character who I believe would, lose sight of the search for justice and the truth to that degree. I almost want this to be a story that gets told to Zoe somehow, but whatever. So yeah, just the whole premise, everything about this episode feels really, really weak to me. And it's a shame, because I can simultaneously understand and know why they did it this way. And that's part of the difficulty with the creative process. And it's also part of why making adaptations for television from a book is so difficult as well. Because there will be a character who is absolutely fucking critical in one half of the book and does all of this stuff, and then they get cast and there's somebody that's kind of a big name. And so now they are supposed to kill that character in the first third. But because this is a big name actor and they're a funny character that the director knows people are going to like, they're like, what if we just didn't kill him? And so all of the gravity about that character is now gone because they just did a whole other thing with it. Anyway, okay, I'm so sorry, you guys. I know that it's probably not super interesting to listen to me talk shit about something. And like I said, I'm not trying to be too hard on this. But we find out that, first of all, Danner indeed has not written that, like, any of that book. There's a whole thing with that. And she's like, it's really hard for me to tell you. I was sort of hoping that it was going to turn out she was writing like crazy and that it was just meant to seem like she wasn't. But she says, I want you to have a clear vision of what happens when you let your heart blind your brain. And I think part of the problem here too is that, like, letting your heart blind your brain is when you actually love and care about somebody. It's just such a different thing to what she winds up telling him. And I know that's probably just part of the joke, but, so yeah, she confesses that she stopped being a cop because she lost her confidence in herself. And he just being like, really? Because you seem really confident to me, like, at all times. And she says, thank you. I work hard at that. But after we solved the Xavier murder, there was another case. And you know how I am. I like to dig deep inside of a case, roll around in it, feel it from every angle. And I love how she says this because it sounds very sexual. And then it turns out it pretty much is. And she says, well, this time I got too close. And there was some, like, arson case that they're investigating. Now, I just want to mention the genre that they're filming this one in. It says Danner's Fire, and it's in this very particular kind of script font that's animated with, like, orange and red and sort of smoke coming off it. It feels really, really, really specific, like a reference, and I don't know what it is. So I'm super sorry. Like, the way I sort of took it was that it's modeled after sort of late 90s police procedurals because it has that sort of energy. But I feel like there's got to be something really in particular. And I'm not a big procedurals fan. The only one that I really ever have, like, watched is Bones. I like murder mysteries, but those aren't really the same thing. So this felt, like I said, as if they were really making it a point to, like, align it with something else. And I don't know what it is. But anyway, so they're interviewing this guy, Leonard Ver. And it turns out that Leonard has these, like, really intricate connections to the people, to the places that got burned down, and that they offended him at one time or another, or so he thinks, and that he already has been inside for arson. And it's just really looking like, yeah, we've just got somebody who is committing the same crime again. And I love this. He says that he was kicked out of the bar and asked not to come back. And when she says, what did he do? Told the waitress he loved her and started bringing her candy every day. Well, that doesn't seem so bad. And he says they were Werther's Originals. And she says, let's nail that son of a bitch. So this was a little bit of a weird one because I think the joke... Oh, okay. Lauren says steamy 90s thriller and title references St. Elmo's Fire. I don't even know for sure if I've ever even seen that movie. It's one of those that I think I partially watched because somebody had it on at, like, a gathering, but actually I don't really remember it at all. So I wouldn't be averse to going and checking that out, though. I might watch that. But okay, cool. Thank you, Lauren. But yeah, the joke here, I think, is just, like, it's weird because telling a waitress that you love her and then showing up every day to give her candy. When she says that doesn't sound so bad, I was kind of like, doesn't it? Because it does to me. Like, that, for me, that sounds like harassment. So her reaction of, like, that doesn't sound so bad felt unnatural. And then him saying they were Werther's Originals. Okay, let's all calm down. Werther's Originals are really fucking good. And don't you dare lie to me and tell me that you don't like those butterscotchy caramelly sons of bitches because they are delicious, and you can quote me on that. I don't care that they're meant to be like the old people's candy. Fine. I'm old. I do not care. Werther's Originals are superior to Butterfinger, and they are superior to Heath Bar even. They just are. I don't make the rules. I just follow them, and those are the rules. Heath Bars are so overrated, you guys. The only candy that comes close that's also, like, it's better than Heath Bar, on par with Werther's, is a Score Bar, which they're really hard to find now. I don't even know if they make them anymore, to be honest. But SKOR, if you see one out, grab it, because that is some real toffee shit right there. It is not like that bullshit Heath Bar. Ugh, what a complete scam. So anyway, just for the record, if anybody out there is listening to this and they're like, it would be a funny joke to send Natasha a bunch of Werther's Originals. Oh, it would be so funny. It really would. You should definitely do it. You should do it. You should do that. Send them to me, please. Thanks. So anyway, I just wanted to establish that that joke did not work for me because, come on. So then we get an amazing monologue, because it turns out that the dude here who's the arsonist is Paul Scheer. He's a real hit or miss for me. Like, sometimes I love him, and at times I'm just sort of like, this guy, he's really chewing the scenery a little too much. But I felt like chewing the scenery was right for this role. And the way that he gives this, like, delivers this monologue, when she says, "What is it about fire?" he says, "It turns me on." And she kind of gives him a look like, okay. And then he says, not in a sexual way, with this sort of like, ew, gross, which I thought was actually very funny. He says, "It's spiritual, the way that it ignites from the smallest bit of friction, and it grows and grows, dancing, crackling and singing as it meets its object, lapping at it, transforming it until it's raging out of control." And I love her. She finally stops him here. And I was like, I'll tell you what, Paul Scheer, are you good in bed? Because you give good in bed with this monologue. There is something there that I was sort of like, okay, yes, would. So, get me some Paul Scheer and some Werther's Originals, I guess, everybody. Anyway, so yeah, this bit is great. And it's also a great description of like the relationship that, is upcoming between her and the psychiatrist. And also, I'm sure there is a monologue like this in maybe St. Elmo's Fire, for all I know. But it feels like they are really doing something very particular here. And I was into it. I really, really enjoyed it. Maybe I should just go check out some like 90s steamy thrillers. That would actually be kind of fun, because that's a genre I truly don't feel like I've watched any. And so I could see just really getting completely wrapped up in that. And so, yeah, when she's like, "So you didn't set those fires?" And he says, "I don't know what you're talking about." And then all of a sudden, her partner just like through the speaker sitting on the desk just says, "Yeah, you do, liar." And it's so good, you guys, because then they get in this argument through the speaker. What? Who the hell is that? That's my partner. He thinks you're guilty. Why is he hiding? What, is he deformed? No. And he says, "Okay, I know what's going on. Is this like good cop, ugly cop?" "I'm not ugly. You're ugly." "Culp, no one thinks you're ugly. You are beautiful inside and out." "Thank you." And she goes on and continues talking eventually. And then he interrupts, "I don't start fires anymore. You got to believe me, ugly cop." "Okay, I am boyishly handsome." I really love not only the way he delivers that line, but the way he holds the button down and then like lets go of it, like the button itself offended him. It was just very good. I liked all of it. And she is talking to Culp later and saying, "I don't think he did it." Did we just hear the same thing? The way he called me ugly? And eventually he says, look, I get it. You like sort of looking deeper into things, and you don't enjoy a case where the person who looks like they did it is the one who did it because you think it's too easy. But yeah, sometimes it's just the person that looks like they did it that did it, though. I really liked that he phrased it this way. He's not being like accusing exactly. He's like, I understand. I get that. That is something that, you know, and it's true. Clearly, the way she's talked about herself, we know this. But I really appreciate it being acknowledged because, like, usually in some shows that I've seen or books that I have read, when this sort of thing is like, sometimes it's just the person that looks like they did it. And they'll get very like aggressive and be like, you idiot. Like, can't believe you would ever consider this other person. And it makes it so clear. Oh yeah. The person that they're like so sure had nothing to do with it is of course going to be the guilty one because we need to prove this guy who's being an asshole wrong. Like, that's going to be part of what the episode is about, is how cocky and certain this guy is and that we have to prove him wrong. And the satisfaction that's very petty on that level of that. But here, the fact that sometimes it's just the guy who looks like he did it coming from Culp, who I know that he can be like antagonistic sometimes, but he is her partner and they have a good relationship. It felt much less like we're setting it up that it's just the guy. It's of course the other guy. I kind of wondered in a way at this point if it was going to turn out to be that like she grows to like this Leonard Ver guy and decides to defend him when it does turn out it was him. You know, that maybe there would be something about him that would sort of get under her skin and make her feel protective of him. And instead, it being the person that she was trying to, like, not see for it, you know? She goes into it sort of, let me explore this case. It may be different than what meets the eye. And then it turns out, like, no, it's actually exactly what meets the eye. And you went in kind of thinking that and got too caught up. I don't know that, like, I kind of just like the misdirect of that because there was a part of me that started to be like, well, maybe he's right. Maybe it is Leonard, you know? But, you know, pretty quickly we begin to find out what's actually going on. Oh my God. And I love the line when he says he talks like fire, like he wants to fuck it. And she says, he said it wasn't sexual, that it was spiritual. And he says, anyone who uses the word spiritual is having weird, annoying sex. I howled at that line. I am so sorry. I am not here to kink shame anybody. It is just the use of the word annoying that's not a word you hear paired with sex almost ever. And it's time that we admit that sometimes fetishes and things can be a little annoying. It can. And this episode is a really hilarious sort of like look at that in some ways. And especially after he says weird and annoying sex about this dude, when you like rewatch and realize that actually it was this other guy and you call a sex that she considered great weird and annoying. I like the subjectivity of that, where she wasn't annoyed by it. She liked the sex, but that, like, from the outside to the viewer, it does look annoying. Like, that does not look good. That's not a good time to me at all. And I'm delighted they're enjoying themselves, but count me out, my friends. So she's like, it's too easy. I'm going to go and talk to Quentin Devereaux. And I love that Culp is just like, yeah, of course you are. Look at him. She claims that's not why she wanted to go and see him. But it turns out to be the reason after the fact. So she comes into his office to meet him. I love the lighting in this, you guys. It's this really like sunset horizontal light pouring in. We've got the slatted blinds, and he doesn't seem to have like a desk lamp on or anything in the room. So it's very heavily shadowed and dramatic as she walks in. And he is doing pull-ups in the corner and has his shirt off. And I've got to admit to a weakness for pull-ups. There's a couple of things that men can do that are particular turn-ons. For me, pull-ups is a big one. You got to have like some real strength for that. You really do. Unless you're super, super thin, and I tend to like not go for thinner guys. I like guys with a bit of a belly. So that's probably not going to work for me in that case. But the other one, push-ups. I love me a push-up. I love the flexing of arms, my friends. Big fan. And you know, and then there's things that guys can do that I find to be an immediate turn off. Guys who do body rolls like strippers cannot. I'm so sorry, but that shit looks ridiculous. I just giggle every time. Like, it's just funny to me. It's not hot. So yeah, that one's not going to work for me. But anyway, so he drops down, forgive my informality. And he's like pouring water all into his mouth, and it's pouring down his chest and everything. Now, I'm going to be honest here. If it's this 90s thriller theme that they're going for, oh my God. I'm so sorry. Lauren just posted in the chat. So I don't think we've brought this up this season, but there are hidden clues in every episode that you have to decipher or led to an online puzzle. Oh, I forgot that was a thing last season, and I meant to look into it after, and I never did. I think I didn't look into it because the second season was already out, and I was sort of afraid to like explore. But thank you. Yeah, I forgot about that. And then one of them involved freeze framing the food on the arsonist's chest. And I was like, this is a punishment. Oh my God. Ew. Oh my God. Oh my God. I'm going to do that. I'm going to freeze frame a couple spots. I don't know if I was like, this is a punishment. Yeah, no shit. Lauren says, I'll send you some links if you want to. Yeah, put it in the, do I have Afterparty No Spoilers channel in the Discord? Are you in there, Lauren? If you're in there, and there is one, post it there. But, yeah, I feel like if we're doing the 90s sort of thriller thing, I think the only 90s thriller that like steamy thriller I've seen is, oh my God. Now, of course, I've forgotten it. The one with Michael Douglas. I say the one with Michael Douglas, but he was like low-key a star of like a lot of those, right? But Michael Douglas, when the Fatal Attraction, that one, I saw that. And I think there was another one with him in it that I saw as well, but I don't remember the name of it. And I think it's supposed to be sort of like sometimes it's men who are being sexually harassed. Like one of those sort of surprise, women are also bad. And I was just like, yeah, all right. But what I was going to say is, for me, this particular character isn't hot. This actor does not do it for me. I have to sort of do that thing that I am obligated to do in a lot of TV where I pretend I get it for the sake of the story, because he has the muscles. He's got a very nice defined jawline. All of the elements are there, but he is just super duper not my type. Like, there's just, so I have to sort of look at him and be like, okay, I don't get it, but I have to consider that I understand it, that I could get it when somebody else was talking about him, which kind of also goes for Michael Douglas. Like, when I think about it, I know a lot of women thought that he was hot for a minute there. I could never see it for him. And it's like, he has also aged really, really badly. So overall, just absolute no for me. But he is played as this sort of sex symbol in a lot of these movies. And you just sort of have to like go along with it. And it's always been sort of frustrating. Like, as a woman, the fact that so many people who were responsible for like casting were men, or directors were men, that a lot of the like male love interests for different properties, they were not being cast by women who were into them. They were being cast by men who were like, this is what women like, right? So there are so many things out there where the male love interest is just nothing. Like, if not simply unappealing, perhaps actively sort of repulsive. And for me, Michael Douglas was low-key repulsive. I really did not like his looks. His voice was irritating. His whole manner felt very slimy and sleazy, which was what sometimes made him a good fit for this sort of thing. But there are actors who can be sleazy and they're still hot, you know, where you're like, ooh, you could tell he's trouble, but I get it, girl. And he's not one of those types. So like, yeah, this is just like almost for the theme, ideal casting to me, you know? But anyway, so she comes in and, of course, is delighted to find him in this state. He knows exactly who she is from the Xavier murder, which, the fact that he was like aware of her and that he, you know, admires what she did with the case. It's really like working for her, which it would. There's a lot of shit talking about appealing to somebody's ego when trying to seduce them or sell them something. But like, you know, it's just nature to want to be seen and appreciated for the things that you do that you love and care about. And so I just really try not to be too shitty when somebody winds up getting played using this method. Like, I understand it. Hell, I fucking wound up married to somebody who was like a major fan of the podcast. There's no way him loving the work that I did wasn't a factor in me just being like, hey, what's up? I mean, come on. Like, just tale as old as time. So anyway, he talks about his Xavier's, or no, not Xavier. Oh my God. Jasper, his sense of rage that was pent up and, you know, just sort of psychoanalyzing him. And she says, I thought you specialized in deviant behavior. And he says, well, my specialty is passion. I think also this guy is looking really, really thin in the face for me. And that's probably like, in order to have the kind of muscle definition that he shows in this episode, you have to have so little body fat that it can make your face look sort of gaunt. And that probably is part of what's going on here, because to me, he just doesn't really look healthy. He kind of looks like he has dropped too much weight. But, you know, for the camera, we got to do things that are not necessarily actually healthy. So yeah, they are getting up close and personal as they're talking. And she's like, I want to ask some questions about Leonard Burr. And at first he's like, well, there's doctor-patient confidentiality. And she's like, well, but he's the suspect in some arsons. And he's like, well, look, he's over that. He doesn't do that anymore. And she says, that's what he said, but I still need to talk to you about it. So then we have dinner with me. And she says, I'm working a case. It's highly unprofessional. But she's got this grin when she says it. And all her body language is like, convince me. Like, it just, you know, it really looks like you could just see it. And he says, you want to understand the mind of an arsonist? I am the man that will give you what you want and what you need. and he gets like right up next to her. And then we have a literal fire that appears on screen, but like overlaid between the two of them. It was really fun. And now we are in his home, which is absolutely stunning. You guys, so often when somebody is supposed to be wealthy and you see their house, it's like, okay, I get that all of this would be very expensive, but it also looks shitty. It looks like I wouldn't want to live here, you know? So often it'll be way too minimalist or just lacking in like the kind of creature comforts that money can buy, that I would be like, why would you not have that? But here, he has just started the fireplace, the gas fireplace. He's got a bottle of wine and he's walking past this open area. It's like there's almost looks like a door onto the patio, but you can't see the door. I don't know if it's like something that rolls up or slides to the side, and that's why it's so invisible, but it looks like it's built to be open at all times, which I have to doubt is the case. And it opens onto this gorgeous in-ground pool that's surrounded by plants and trees and vegetation, but there's like a fence sort of separating it. It's like steaming gently too, so you know that the pool is heated. Like everything about it looked so enticing, and I was just like, excuse me, why can't I live like this? Come on. He also has like a grand piano, and the whole place is just really, really dramatic. And he's got all of these paintings on the walls of different women that he claims to have painted. And he tells her, I think you would make an excellent model. And she says, I thought this was supposed to be a business dinner, but she is wearing this white low cut so that you can actually see the front edges of her leopard print bra, white sleeveless dress. Excuse me. She looks amazing. This dress is fucking everything. I love it so much. This dress was the best part of the episode. Like easy. And it's very, very on theme, because this would have been like, there was a whole thing in the late 80s and early 90s of like powerful women who the way we shorthanded that they had power was business wear. And we would sort of masculinize the look of what they were wearing. We would do double-breasted with like the buttons, or we would do really wide shoulders, or it would be very sort of like upside down triangle shape emphasis and very, very slim across the hips in order to sort of, because the look was much more boyish of a figure at that time. And I just really, this is like hitting all of the notes, but is just modernized enough that it feels like today. You know what I'm saying? And I really want this dress like very, very badly. It's definitely got shoulder pads too. Like you could see it all, but it's none of it is so over the top as to feel like this is a joke. And I don't know. It's just a funny, especially the earrings and the way her hair is done, like the whole thing. It's just really, really on point. Yeah, so this scene, you guys, he lights, I was looking at this like, what is he even doing? He's got a creme brulee torch, like a butane torch, that he like scorches these carrots with, and I guess the carrots are like meant to be sitting in a pool of maybe wine. I don't know what it is that he is supposed to be cooking here, but maybe they're parsnips. I think it's parsnips and carrots. But yeah, he lights them up, and it's really funny because he does this, and then the little flames flicker up, and it's so clearly like CGI fire. It does not look good. And when he says like, and the power of it, and he like pulls his hand through the flames a little bit, and you have this like red light that begins to beam across the two of them onto the fridge behind them. And it's just really, really intense and over the top. So yeah, the two of them, the chemistry is good between the actors. I'll say that. But, this whole interaction, eventually, I love when he has to be like, put the fire out. And she's like, "You're not a very good cook, are you?" He says, "My passions lie elsewhere." And this was so great. Because when she says, "And what's your passion?" I'm thinking that he's going to say something really like, the female form. Something that's a euphemism for sex. But he just says sex. And I like that he just says it, because that's what it always is, And she says, "Really, just straight up sex?" And he says, "All kinds of sex. I guess you could call me a pyromaniac, only instead of fire, I like sex." And I really appreciate Anique just chiming in with, there's a term for that. So when she says, "I also like sex," he says, "Show me." And so she grabs him and pushes him up against the fridge and starts making out with him. And this was great, because what he does is he stops her and he says, "I want you to do something for me. I want you to slap my titty." And she's like, "Wait, what?" And he undoes his shirt and wants her to slap him on the chest. I really liked the way that this scene played out, because she does it, but she's seemingly bemused by the request and sort of like, "I'm not getting it." He likes it and asks her to do it again. And so she does it again. And then he says, okay, harder, again. And he holds her hand this time and shows her how hard he wants her to do it. And then she just suddenly sort of loses it and is just like, "Shit." And she licks her hands and just begins bashing on his chest. And I really love that, because this can be a thing where somebody is sort of into a thing that you're not into. You're not, against it, but you don't really understand it. And then when you do it and you see their reaction, at first you were sort of thinking, this feels really silly, but you see that they are not finding it silly at all. And then you're like, oh, okay, this is really fun now. Once you get on board with their enjoyment of it, but it doesn't have, because you don't have to understand it. You just need to listen and do the thing. And if you're doing it well and they're reacting well, then that's just going to work out. But yeah, I love when she starts to really smack on his chest. The camera sort of pulls away, and there's a moment just before the camera moves away where you can see that he's sort of starting to be like, "Ow," like the actor. It felt like, I don't think he realized the camera hadn't entirely retreated yet. So I did find that funny. And then we come back to the present, and she's just smacking on his chest in the air, like she's smacking the air. And Anique is asking, "Do you really need to know about all of this? Do you need every little detail?" Now, I sort of wanted to ask you guys whether you agree with me on this, because his argument is, I get that the sex is the thing, I just don't need to hear every detail, made me sort of think about, there's been a recent trend with younger viewers not really being into sex scenes in movies and film as much anymore. Now, this is not an across-the-board thing. It's not even a majority thing. It's that there is a vocal group of people who feel like, why are we still doing this goofy shit with sex scenes? And the facts are that if you look at the trends in films and stuff over the past 10 or 15 years, sex scenes are a lot less frequent a thing in comparison to where they were 20 years ago. It's just, it's not that they aren't there. Of course they're there, but it's just not in every fucking little, it used to be anything that was rated R. There was going to be a topless woman somewhere in that movie, every time. And that's just really not the thing anymore. R often comes from the swearing and the blood. Sex has been really sort of taken out of the equation in a way. And I'm not even claiming whether this is a good or bad thing, but it's just true. And I was sort of wondering if Anique was being used as like a person who is arguing with why these like 90s steamy thrillers aren't really doing it for him anymore. It's just like, this is a mystery. And I just kind of want to know like what happens. I don't really need to see all of the sex, you know? But anyway, so we go from here to Zoe's POV. I don't know what she's doing here. She's like crouching, going through some baskets on in the like hallway. And I don't know what it is that she was looking for, but when she comes out, when her uncle comes out, she seems startled and like she's trying to make it look like she wasn't looking through stuff the way that she is. When he asks if she's okay and she says no, she then says, I'm trying to help Grace, but I don't know what I'm doing. So I think maybe it was meant to be that like she's looking through these baskets for clues because she is so out of ideas that just like any random area, she decides she's going to go through it. And I don't know. I couldn't decide if I believed that or not. Like I was starting to be like, did Zoe do it? Like I would find that kind of fun. So she brings up to her uncle about these special pancakes that used to make us when we were little. Dutch babies. And it just sort of felt like she was trying to distract him. I don't know. There was just something about this that felt very unnatural to me. She says, do you think you remember how to make them because I am starving? And it just really was sort of such a ploy to get him away from this spot. It felt like to me, you know, I don't know. So they're walking away. She says, you know, you always sent us postcards from all over the world, but I never knew why you left. And he says, I was restless. The world was calling. And she says, Grace and I thought you were a spy. And he says, I am not. But she says, that's what a spy would say. Cute interaction, I guess. I don't know. So they go into the kitchen and they see Devil's Trumpet on the counter. And they're like, what are you doing? And he tells them that he found out how to make this tea on Reddit. Welcome to the lab. What is the special knowledge one must have to make this tea? I got the flowers. I got a little instruction. And it turns out you basically just like steep it in boiling water. And when her uncle, I can't remember, his name is like Ulysses, I think. He says, how do you know you did it right? Travis says, because he drank some. I microdosed. According to Red Pill 69, in small doses, this is just a mild hallucinogen. To which, rightfully, Zoe says, okay, how much is a small dose? And he stops and realizes that he doesn't actually have like a measurement. Like a small dose is not specific. What does that mean? It could be a dropper full. It could be a drop. You know, that's not anything. And she says, how much did you drink? And he says, just a little bit, like a sip. It was like a small sip. And when they start to push him further, he says, oh God, did I drink too much? I might have drank too much. We don't know. Shit, this was avoidable. Oh my God, the way he begins to like freak out here. This was some good acting. I enjoyed it. I really did. And he just sort of begins to sink to the floor, freaking out. I really just want to say that I don't think the drug is meant to have been necessarily kicking in here. I think this is pure panic on his part. I do not think that this is the drug affecting him and making him fall down. So here goes Danner telling Anik more of the story. We are on the kitchen floor, and I had a spatula in each hand, just squeezing his round, muscular ass. And she's just smacking it, and Anik is like, this is a short version. And then we get the worst scene ever. Then we raided the refrigerator. And the two of them here are feeding each other. Oh my God. At first, it's like, oh, it's strawberries and it's chocolate sauce. And it's like, okay, traditionally seen as sexy foods. And then we go to like a thin cut drippy pickle. And then we have her smacking him in the chest with a pickle. And then we have her taking spaghetti and just rubbing it all over his face. And then he has a meatball and he's like shoving it in her face. And then the bagels, you guys, it was no bueno. Oh my God. No, I really couldn't take those bagels. God, you guys, this bagel thing. I'm just looking at it. Them kissing through the hole in the how did they not laugh? Oh God, the coleslaw. Oh, I find coleslaw so nasty anyway. Oh, and then them pouring ketchup and everything all over there. Oh, this is so gross. Ah, I can't, you guys. I can't. I hate it. It's so gross. All right. I freeze framed. And it looks like there's a lowercase g in spaghetti on his chest. Vaguely. Like, no idea if this is anything. There's a part of me that's like, I'm being a real Travis right now. But, In the chat, Lauren says, why did you have to remind me of the bagels? Yeah, the bagels get a lot of screen time. We've got like the nipples coming through the holes of the bagels. Then we have kissing through the holes of the bagel. It's like just too much bagel time. None of this is good. It just looks so nasty. All of it like all over them and covered in mustard, and the smell of it. Like it would be so gross. So they're talking afterwards, and he says, if you think I'm good at sex, I'm also a good psychiatrist. I can tell he wasn't lying. Like, he's not doing this shit anymore. And I'm realizing how, you guys, I can't believe that I've almost hit my hour and I've barely gotten through. I don't need to, though. So, jumping ahead to her mentioning the fire at the dairy chill, something like that. It was like, ice cream place. And he expressed a surprise because he said he didn't know that place burned down. And I was sort of thinking at the time that like maybe he hadn't intended to burn it to the ground and it got out of hand. But what he frames it as with her is that like the last time that he talked to whatever his name is, he mentioned that they were mean to him there. And so maybe that gave a motive. And she goes to the karaoke thing and she she chases him. He's singing We Didn't Start the Fire on stage without any music. And everybody is just trying to get him off because it's not his turn. They're trying to get him off the stage. And eventually she runs in and he just sprints away. And of course, she's trying to pin this thing on him. He's claiming he didn't do it. She's like, well, then let me search your car. And he says, fine. And when he opens it, it's full of like accelerant and rags and stuff. And oh my God, I forgot about this. One titty likes the smacks. The other likes the wax. And Anik just says, okay, I can't do this anymore. Oh God. So yeah, this whole thing, eventually she comes back to his place after thinking she's wrapped the case up. They arrest this guy. We're all set. And then when she's at his apartment, she sees the same brand of turpentine. And this is remembering that the rag she wiped herself off with is the same rag that she saw in the trunk. And then one of the paintings that he's working on, she pulls the cover off of it and sees that it's just a stick figure with two giant boobies, like in total spheres. Oh my God. And she tries to call her partner, and he says, hey, it's Culp. No one uses voicemail anymore, so fucking text me, you weirdo. And all of a sudden, here comes the man from behind her, and he tries to pretend that she tries to pretend that she didn't figure it out. She tries to play it cool, and he acts as if he doesn't know that she has figured it out. And he leads her back to the bedroom. And eventually, he just cuffs her to the bed, and he starts a fire, like, right in the bedroom. But Culp comes in, and I love this so much. Culp, when he comes running in, he says that she basically, like, left the voicemail thing running. So he heard everything. And yet, because she's stuck in their feathery handcuffs, they don't have the key. And so they're not sure, like, how to get her out of here. And she suggests that there's lube on the side table and that he put that on her hand, and that will help her just slide her wrist out. No, I can't do that. You're my partner, and that is sexual. That is sexual lubricant. This is not a sexual situation. It's blurred lines, sweetie. He's screaming at her. So finally, lean away. I'm going to shoot it. And he tells her that he was the best shot in his class and that she needs to trust him. You guys, I couldn't believe that they actually just went with this. He's like just pulling the fucking trigger. And I think that maybe this is another nod to like the 90s thing, because you have to do the most dangerous thing to get out of the situation. So he says, I can't see. And if she says, if you can't see, then don't shoot. And he just like pulls the trigger and he shoots the headboard so that she can slide off it. When I tell you guys, I thought he was trying to hit the handcuffs. I thought he was trying to hit the like chain that holds the handcuffs together. It did not even occur to me to destroy. I thought the headboard was metal. So that was a way better solution. That made sense. Once I saw what it was they were trying to do, I was like, oh, okay, gotcha. But yeah, so he collapses and, she is able to fireman carry him out of the place. They let Leonard go and Quentin disappeared in the wind, and it was all my fault, so I resigned. And the fact that Quentin like disappeared, a part of me is sort of like, at this point, maybe he will have something to do with this. I doubt it, but like, I don't know, maybe. Why not? I just didn't enjoy him enough as a character to want him to be back. So I'm not really particularly excited about it. So anyway, Anik is like, all right, I have to interview her family. I get it. And they decide that they're going to start with Ulysses because Isabel just seems a lot scarier. So this is when Zoe hears him say, like, all you need to poison him is the flour and like a teapot. And she thinks about the teapot that is in the room with Edgar's body. And she gives a whiff of it. And it's unclear whether she finds anything like that's incriminating in it or what. She's touching it, which felt like a pretty, like, she's got her fingerprints all over it at this point. That seems like a real bad move to me. But she gets interrupted by Isabel, who comes in and is trying to catch her. And it seems like she has, but then it turns out she's just looking in like a closet instead. Zoe, for whatever reason, is like, oh, okay, I'm going to get rid of this while Isabel is out there. And she hides the teapot in the like armoire in the bathroom. I do not understand the thinking behind this. It's just, what it feels like is I am supposed to believe she's trying to get rid of evidence that might incriminate herself or her sister. And what it feels like is a silly thing to do because she doesn't actually have a good idea what this teapot even means. And she's just sort of doing whatever because she doesn't know what she's doing, which she freely admitted earlier. So, yeah, that's where I'm at. But that's the end of the episode. It ends with the teapot. So, all right, I'm going to have to wrap this up. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. Thank you, Max, for commissioning this. I'm sorry I didn't love this one, but still was fun to talk about. And until next time, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.